Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello and welcome to Winning. I am Mackenzie Kilshaw, your host, and today's guest is Lucy Dunne. How are you, Lucy?
Really good, Mackenzie. How you doing?
I'm really good. I'm so pumped to have you on, Lucy. And I have to say, your bio is literally like the best bio I've ever gotten. I'm not even changing it. I usually shorten things up, but Lucy is a professional donut eater. She is an outdoor enthusiast, a digital nomad, personal trainer, nutrition coach, likely someone you can't get enough of. She founded Dunnebells with the hopes of one day impacting many generations to come. So I absolutely love that. Thanks for being on, Lucy. I'm very pumped to have you.
Oh, well, honestly, thanks so much for creating this space and for having so many guests on and having these conversations that I think really need to be happening. And I'll be completely honest with you, I could not write a bio myself to save my life. And so my lovely team helped me out, and that's how we got there. But it's really cool to hear things back, because it's like, yeah, that is what I'm doing. That is what I'm, trying to achieve. And I think too often we zoom past some of that stuff. So it's really cool. And I highly recommend everyone, get their friend or get someone to write them a bio. And I think it's a really cool experiment to do.
Yeah, I love that. And lots of times I find bios, I'll read mine. I'm like, it's kind of boring, right? You're like, oh, I've done this and done that. Woohoo. No one cares. But when your first day is professional donut eater, I love that. So it shows a lot about your character too, right? When you start off with something that's pretty cute. So that's awesome.
Yeah. A lot of people that don't like donuts, it's like we rule that out right there. It's like we don't go any further than this, and that's okay.
Do they exist? Do people not like donuts? I don't know. It's crazy.
I only encountered a few of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I feel like I know you. Before we started recording, I said, I feel like I know you. And honestly, it's the power of social media, which is what we're going to talk a lot about today. But I do want to start out with, who are you? Tell us about yourself and about Dunnebells as well.
Yeah. So similar to the bio, I run my own online personal training company where we help women all around the world become better versions of themselves, essentially, at the end of the day. So that means improve confidence, they become stronger, they feel empowered by their nutrition. And that's what I have to pinch myself, to be honest. I get to wake up every single day and do that. It's kind of like how did this become my life? And so that takes up a bulk of my time. And then outside of that, my beautiful wife and I, we get to spend our days together. We just adopted a beautiful deaf dog, and she's also, trying to make an appearance on this podcast, but we're going to try and keep that from happening. And yeah, it's just this beautiful journey where I really wake up every single day. I'm grateful to have air in my lungs. And I just think it's what a beautiful life to live. And so there's lots of things that I'm sure we'll get into that I do and how I got there. But at the core of it, online personal training surrounded by incredible women, and have many pinch me moments every day that this is my life.
And you know what? That's what entrepreneurship is about. Loving your life and doing something that isn't work, right? You're doing something that you love doing. And there are aspects of work to it. I know that. But when you wake up every day and you genuinely love your life, that's a pretty great feeling.
It is. And I think we'll get into it because I don't also want to sugarcoat anything. There have been times where I feel like especially in the beginning, I have worked harder and put in more hours than I ever was at my full-time job. So before I left that, it was a very, cushy 9 to 5, lots of freedom, lots of travel, all of these things. And so what I don't want to sugarcoat is that waking up every day and living this dream life has happened because of all of the hard lessons I've learned along the entrepreneurship journey. And a lot of it has been about how to manage time and how to make it so we're only doing the things that I do actually enjoy. And so I'm sure we'll get into that, but I definitely don't want to sugarcoat it and like, poof, this happened and now I wake up every day and everything's perfect. It's taken a lot of lessons, a lot of hardships, and a lot of change and growth to get to that place. And I'm sure I'll look back in 5 years and be like, what were you doing? But that's the whole beautiful thing of it. But it definitely hasn't been like flick the switch and woke up and love every single day of my life and business is great.
Yeah, exactly. I always say if another entrepreneur or small business owner tells you it's unicorns and butterflies, they're lying to you, because it's not. And I never want to discourage people and have them think like, oh, it's like I can't do it or I don't want to start because it's hard. But everything's hard. I mean, a 9-to-5 job is hard. Having a family is hard, right? There's not a lot that comes really easy in life. But you're right. If you can set yourself up to have more of the enjoyable moments and less of the hard moments, that's what it's about, right?
100%. The hard moments are going to be, I think they help us grow. They help teach us things. They get us outside that comfort zone, and it makes all the good stuff that much sweeter because we've had sort of something on the other end of the scale too.
Exactly. And I mean, if nothing was ever hard, I don't think your life would be very exciting either, right? Because that's what makes, you're right, you grow, you develop, you improve as a human being, as a business owner, as a personal trainer, whatever it is, right?
Exactly. And as much as it sucks when we're in the thick of it, in the weeds, going through it, it's not necessarily fun. But on the other side, if we can really grab onto that growth mindset and try and understand that everything does have a purpose and all of those sorts of things, it's like makes it that little bit easier when you're going through it. But again, not to sugarcoat it, the hard times, they suck. They're not enjoyable. Trying to make them as sweet and far between as possible is what I try and do.
Exactly. And knowing that every person that has a business or that is trying to start a business is going through the same things, it does make it a little bit easier. And that's kind of the joy of listening to a podcast like this. Maybe someone is not in personal training, they're opening a donut shop perhaps, but they know, okay, somebody like Lucy or Mackenzie, they went through similar things and they made it out the other side. So can I, right?
Absolutely. And again, I'm sure we'll get into this, but one thing I've learned through growing my personal training business to 6 figures and beyond is that there's this need and desire for this community of people that's really helpful. And so as like a side shoot, I do help people now with their businesses hitting that first 6-figure year and leaving their 9-to-5s because, again, the lessons that I've learned, the hardships that I've gone through, it was really clear to me that something like that wasn't really there for people. It's great if you're just starting out or if you need support to once you've, got a $250,000 business. But what about the in-between? What about those individuals that have grown their business, but they're just not sure how to take that next step? And so that's been something that I've been really enjoying the last 2 years is helping other entrepreneurs. And so obviously we're going to have great conversations about all of this, but it's just like, it's so, when you're open to these things, it's so incredible what can happen and how many people you can surround yourself with and really how important it is, like you say, to surround yourself with other business owners who really, they're going through the same stuff.
Oh, exactly. It just makes it that much easier and better, right? Makes those hard times better. Okay. So I know you mentioned you had a 9-to-5 job, kind of corporate world. Now you're a personal trainer, training people all over the world, really. So I want to start off with, how did you get from point A office job to point B where you are now? What was that transition? I mean, that's a huge leap to leave, right? To leave a job that you're getting paid and you get holiday time and all that to doing your own thing. So talk about that a little bit. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card.
Yeah. To date, one of the scariest things I have ever done. And I had this calendar up on the door where I would leave, my front door where I would leave every single day to go to my job at the time. And I said to my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, I have to listen to this desire that is in me to go all in on my business. So I had already sort of started things. I had a few clients, like I'm talking maybe 6 or 7 clients, nothing to the level of revenue, to be honest, that I needed things to be to replace that full-time job and to replace that full-time income. I just was thinking, I have to go all in on this, or I just am never going to know. I'm always going to be wondering. And so I decided on a date that I was going to quit that job. I made a calendar on the back of the door, and every single day that I came in from work, I'd cross another day off, and it got closer and closer to the day where I needed to quit, because otherwise I just wouldn't do it. I would have stayed comfortable there. I had nothing to complain about. Great people that I worked with, great salary, so much vacation time, so many days off, so much room for growth, all of the things that people look for in a professional career. Yet I still felt like when I would go to that office that I was just, my cup was being drained, and quickly. Now I know that that's because I was in this place living completely out of alignment. It was a project management job. It was for a signage company. So we would be putting, when you go into a store and you see their big sign on the front, those were the sorts of projects that I was managing. So big accounts, 7-Eleven, Co-op, Opa, these big accounts was what I was managing, and it was fantastic, not going to lie. But it was nothing to do with what I felt like my true desire was. And so had to go all in. And so I made that countdown. I went into the office. I handed in my 2 weeks notice. I bawled my eyes out. They offered me $20,000 more to keep me, and I still had to say, unfortunately, no. Unfortunately for you, unfortunately for me. But it's just, it validates it all at the end. It's like they were willing to offer that when I was walking out the door. And it just goes to show in my mind how I'll always be an entrepreneur, because that sort of do it for somebody else and build their business and help them out, that's not for me. And so it's just been like a really interesting journey from that moment. I remember day one after I had quit and I was full-time in my business and I had my 7 clients and I had responded to their workouts, and it took me less than an hour, and I was like, well, what do I do now? And so
now what?
From there, it's been a really interesting journey. I've worked, like I said, harder than I've ever worked in my life in terms of marketing, sales, growth, all the things that come with a business. And it's been the most beautiful thing ever. And 7 years later, here we are, and we've got multiple sources of income. We've got tons of clients all around the world. We're in Canada, America, Australia, England, India, Hawaii. Like, we've got so many, incredible women around the world now. And I just never thought that it could be there, but I knew that I had to listen to the voice that was like, go all in.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I was very similar to you. Same thing. I had a corporate job that I sold candy and chocolate bars. Like, I was not complaining. I enjoyed doing it, but it was not a passion. It was a paycheck, right? And to leave knowing how much money I had and knowing I have to pay a mortgage, I have to pay a car payment, I may not have a day off in who knows how long. And that's scary. That is extremely scary, because I had no one to fall back on. If it didn't work, that's on me. Now I got to find a new job and whatever. But I don't want to say I didn't care, but in my head, I'm like, it's going to work. I'm going to make it work. And I think that determination and that thought of, I want to do this, I'm passionate about it, it's going to work out, really propelled me. And I don't know if that was dumb or smart. I'm not sure. But I had to believe it, right? I had to believe that I was going to make it.
Yeah. And I think for some people, if you're listening and you're like, that just sounds terrifying, and I've got children and I've got a roof that I need to put over all of our heads, and all of these things that are very real. I'm not here to take away from those things. We need money to live the sort of life that we want to live, or at least sustain the life that we currently have. And so, not to take away from how scary it is or how dumb it may seem to just uproot everything and change. What I know to be true, though, is that look how far, if you're listening, look how far you've already come with all the decisions that you've made. And so why is this different? Back yourself. Trust yourself. Worst case scenario often is that you go and find some other full-time job and you say, that didn't work out as how I was planning it, and now I'm going to pivot yet again. And so my whole thing was, and I said again to my girlfriend at the time, if I need to go work at 7-Eleven and do the night shift because they pay better, and my business does not work how I'm planning it to work, and we can't pay all of our bills, that's what I'm willing to do. Again, you can call that whatever you want. It doesn't sound like a really fun thing to have it circulating in your mind, but I knew that was an option, and it makes it easier a little bit to swallow and to just trust yourself and back yourself and know how far you've already come. And so why is this any different? But we tend to make all these excuses and put up all these walls against our true potential and what we can actually do. So if you're scared, if you're terrified, so are we. We're all scared. We're all terrified. Do it anyway.
Exactly. Well, and you can't let fear take over, because if you let fear take over and you don't do it, then you're just stuck in the same life that you were in before, right? And if you try it, you never know the success that you can find by trying. But if you don't do anything, then nothing's going to happen. You're going to live the same life. You're not going to be fulfilled. And what's worse? I mean, if you open a business and it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. Like you say, you get another job, you move on, you sell it, you do whatever. But having the fulfillment and the joy and all of the good things that come with it far exceed that fear.
Absolutely. And I completely forget about this sometimes. So I think I put a bit of a block up in my mind. I had a failed business before this one. So I opened a company before even like HelloFresh existed. Before these big meal prep companies existed, making it easier for you to get healthy, fresh food delivered right to your door every week, I had a meal prep company because I noticed a huge gap in the market. And so I got the commercial kitchen. We had the delivery drivers. We had all of this stuff planned in my head. In the beginning, it was me doing absolutely everything. And with the cost of food and what I was charging, we were in the red. So we were losing money every single month. And I was passionate about getting people that healthy food, but at the end of the day, it was a failed business. I had to close the doors because it was bleeding money. And so it was like, okay, that didn't work. I still kept my job at the time. And I was like, what else is there for me? And then this felt more aligned. This felt what I was called to do. So I started doing that. And then this one, we could say worked, because here we are 7 years later, still doing it with an incredible team and amazing clients. However, if we don't try those things, we're never going to know.
No, exactly. And you're just limiting yourself then, right? Yeah. You were maybe before your time with the food business, right? Because maybe it was just too soon. And that sometimes I think happens. It's just not the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a friend who owns a very similar company now, and they went through a real big struggle at the same time. And they persevered. Their big thing was they wanted vending machines in corporate places where people could put in the money, wind the dial, a healthy meal would fall out, microwave the meal, good to go. And so, again, early, beginning stages before HelloFresh existed and those sorts of things, they persevered. They're doing fantastic now. And so it's just good for them that obviously they could put their heels into it and grit enough to go through some of those times because they're also bleeding money. I didn't have it in me at that point in my life, and there was some sort of alignment that felt off for me. It didn't feel in flow. I didn't feel pumped and jazzed every single time I walked into that kitchen. And so we've got to also listen to those things and learn along the way of like, it's okay. If we said we're going to do that one thing, we can change. We can pivot. We get to make those decisions as the business owners.
Exactly. No, that's all right. And I think I talk a lot and feel a lot about mindset, right? And being positive and whatnot. But there's also, you have to know the time when it's not right, right? And maybe you don't change your business completely. Maybe you change direction or you change an offering or product or whatever your business is, right? But maybe it's one small change that you make that makes a world of difference.
Exactly. And so that is like a nice, lovely segue into the other thing that I think people struggle with. I hear it day in, day out. Whether it is I don't know where to start or I don't feel like I have all the things in place that I need to start, just start. We had an 8-week program that I knew was really good. I had my own personal weight loss journey. So I lost 65 pounds. I'd struggled with an eating disorder. I had found this strength training love, and I knew with all my certifications, how to actually program something to help people get these results. And so I had this really good product. However, it was a giant PDF document that had these little tiny images and this big, graph that people had to fill in, and they would send it to me every day and I'd be replying to emails. And so when I look back on that, talk about time management, my time, I I didn't have the ability to have any more than my 7 clients because I was busy writing and reading and programming and doing all of these things. But the thing is, I just started, and then we really paid attention to what people were interested in. So they were sick of carrying their big binder into their workout, or they felt like they couldn't see the photo properly and they didn't know the move, exactly how to do it. And so today we have an app with thousands of workout videos programmed in where they can hit play, they can watch videos. And that didn't just happen. I didn't wait for that perfect product. It happened as a journey, and we took our customers along. We've still got customers from day one. And so I think as well, don't worry about it being perfect or how you want it to be in your head. You can get there. You can have time to develop it into that. And what you'll likely learn if you listen to your people is that maybe it doesn't need to go the way you thought it needed to go anyway. And so just start and be open to learning.
Yeah, exactly. Take a small step, right? Take a step in the direction you want to go, and then take a bigger step next time and a bigger step the next time. And you know what? The glory of, like you say, if you try to make it perfect, you might never do it, or it takes you a year to launch it and you should have launched it months ago. The glory of launching something that's still good but isn't perfect is that you get the feedback. You get the feedback from your customers that say, you know what, we would love a video and not a picture. Or we would love you to send us an audio that tells us, something that can help them along the way. Maybe you didn't even think about that. And now you've got feedback from people that are already your clients telling you what they would like to see to make it better. And you've improved just by taking that feedback.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important thing that's overlooked. We map out this whole 5-year business plan and we think it's going to go exactly the way that we have put it on paper. Reality is if we just go back to the reason why we're doing it and we get started, often the rest will take care of itself. If we are kind to people, we help people, that's what I lay my hat on, is like, I am helping people regardless of how we get there in the end. Things will likely change in the next few years. I don't have a huge, big plan because what I have learned is that it often changes. And if we're open to that and we help people, we make them feel better about themselves, if that's what you're wanting to do in terms of your business, then it's gonna be, an easier road for you than mapping it all out and having to scrunch it up and start all over.
Exactly. And I think really important is you start out with what your values are and what your mission statement is. So what do you want to do? And then every decision you make comes back to that. Does it align? And if it does, then you do it. And if it doesn't, you don't. And you don't necessarily know what those decisions are today, right? Because something called COVID happened, right? Things happen in our world that we don't prepare for or we're not thinking about. And you have to make decisions right at that moment.
Exactly.
You can't plan for them. Exactly.
One of the biggest challenges we're finding right now is that right in the beginning, when we would say, we do online personal training, everyone would say, what is that? Everyone would be confused by it. And now one barrier we're facing is people have fatigue from doing things online. People hear that it's online with a camera and it brings this knee-jerk reaction to them that they don't like. And so it's a barrier that we're having to work through in our messaging, in our communication, which we never faced before. And so it's just really interesting, like you say, we can't plan for those things. Never could see that happening, but a positive outlook on it and being like, we still, at the end of the day, we can help people achieve incredible results. That's what we know we can do. That's back to, some of our values. And so let's just keep going and we will get there and we will work around that barrier that they have. And that is what's happening. But that's something that we couldn't predict.
No, exactly. You never know what the future holds. No one does. That's a boat that we're all in the same one. Nobody knows, right? You can kind of predict, you can think, you can set yourself goals, which is important, but you don't know what hurdles are going to come in that way, right? They might have to change. You might have to make a full on left turn where you never planned to, but that's the way it goes.
And those are the beautiful moments. Like, how incredibly fortunate are we that we are in this world where we can pivot, we can turn, we can do whatever we want. Take those sharp lefts, embrace them, welcome them. That is where the sweet stuff happens. And again, it's not comfy when you're in it, but it is incredible when you come out the other side and you're like, look what I did because of the decisions I made.
Oh, exactly. And a lot of that is change, growth, fear, all the things that make us uncomfortable, but they get you to the other side, and they get you through, right? And they make you better. They make you a better person and a better wife and a better mother and a better friend and all the things, right?
Yeah.
Developing yourself only makes everything better, including your business, which is advice. I know you have to learn some of these hard lessons, but take that advice exactly as we say it, because it is true.
100%. You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So when you were younger, did you have dreams of having your own business? Or was that something that along your life journey that just happened?
Yeah, definitely along my life journey. My people I was surrounded with, it was just very, you go to school, you go to university, you get your job, you stay in your job till you're 65, you retire, you start living then. And so right out of high school, it was really clear to me that I had applied for university, I got in, I got accepted, and there was just this thing that was, screaming at me of like, that's not really what you want to do, or at least not right now. And so best thing I did, I booked a one-way ticket to New York City from Australia, and I jumped on a plane, and I was like, you'll figure it out. And so I left not knowing really what the future held. I had no idea, like it wasn't even on my radar. And I'm talking as far away as possible was entrepreneurship. It was not even it wasn't even a blink in my eye, nothing close did I ever think of entrepreneurship would be for me. I didn't even know what it was. Just thought I'd get a job over there, I'll figure it out, life will be good. And so through that journey, it kind of led me to perhaps you don't want to work for somebody else. Perhaps you don't want to have the lack of freedom that you feel when you have a job. And I understand that's not for everybody. Some people absolutely thrive in that environment, but it was not like I was born this true entrepreneur and I had this skill set that I was blessed with. I feel like I've had to work every single step of the way to learn what is required to be an entrepreneur, to be a CEO, to manage a team of my own, to figure out payroll, to hire an accountant, because I realized that I can't do that stuff myself. All of these things I don't feel like have come naturally, where I'm like, I'm a great business owner and I was born with these talents and I know how to do all of these things. Every step has been a pretty harsh lesson and journey, but one of the best ones. And so it was never on my radar. It was never something that I was born dreaming of doing. But then when I started it and started to see what was possible, I got hooked and I got really into business in general, learning about business, learning about specifically women founders and women investments and things like this that I had just never been exposed to. And so once you enter that world, if it's of interest to you, you just sort of naturally get there on your own path. But to answer your question, don't feel like I was born with any entrepreneur bug inside me. Had to learn it and grow along the way.
Yeah. Well, and that personal growth, like look at where it's led you, right? It's led you to success. And you never knew.
Never knew. And the thought of a job now, we're actually dealing with, we're in the process of, we're in Australia now. We lived overseas for, 12 years. We're in this process of looking at homes, looking at buying houses. And they're not always kind to a single income entrepreneur family, regardless of what that revenue is. And so we're process. We talked to one mortgage broker just to keep it completely candid on here, and they were saying for the banks with all the interest rates and blah blah blah. That's not my world. I don't know much about it, but they were basically saying it could help your lending if you were to even hold like a part-time job for a month. You get X amount more. And we both just looked at each other. My wife and I were like, that sounds like some kind of awful. Like we will just pay cash and figure that out if we need to, because the thought now of a job is like, ew, what?
I think it's so funny because when I started my business and owned my business for a few years, people are like, oh, you own your own business, you're rich, you've got a lot of money, right? That's a perception that people have. And yes, lots of entrepreneurs and lots of business owners do have a lot of money, but people don't realize the struggles like that, like getting a mortgage and maybe getting a car loan, because you don't have a predictable income, especially at the beginning, right?
Yeah, and what I'm learning is that they don't necessarily care about how much revenue you make per year. they see you as a risk. They see you as someone who it could change very drastically. And so are they going to lend you $2 million that you may not be able to pay back? For them, they see that as a huge risk. It's not always about you make this much revenue and you can absolutely afford the mortgage payment. And that's just been like a big eye-opener to me. I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? You can have your dream life and you can make all of this money and you and your wife can spend your days together and you can live off this one income, and it's like the dream that everybody paints. And don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. We've experienced some incredible things. However, when trying to buy a house, which is what I consider to be a very normal adult thing to do, right now they're jumping through hoops because on paper they don't like it. Two of us on the one entrepreneur income.
No, it's so true. I went through a similar thing when I refinanced my mortgage. And same thing, they're like, and I wasn't married yet. I'm married now, but I wasn't married yet. They're like, well, maybe you might need a co-signer. I'm like, I've had a mortgage for like 15 years and I've never had to have a co-signer before. But now, because I don't have like a 9-to-5 job and I have my own business, I need a co-signer. It was just ludicrous to me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And they're telling us, you just need to hold the job for a month because we need to show that pay slip and then you can quit. And I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense to me. But
no sense.
Yeah, I feel you. It's just some of the bizarre things with business owners that you never really think of.
No, exactly. You never know until it happens to you. And you think, okay, this is an interesting and strange, convoluted thing.
Exactly.
So true.
It, but it does come with society is definitely built for a typical 9-to-5, add into your retirement, grab it when you're 65, and then start living your life. Society and the things that you try and do in society are mostly built for that lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there are more entrepreneurs now than, even when I was younger. I always said when I graduated high school, they're like, are you going to be a nurse or a teacher or and I think now being an entrepreneur is actually on that list. Are you going to have your own business or you want to do something you love? So I hope that things like that, like the mortgages and cars and things like that are changing. I hope that we're developing and we can kind of leave that in the past.
100%. I think we're definitely going in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. So true. Okay, major turning point. I don't know. I feel like your major turning point was when you put that calendar on your wall and said, I'm quitting on this day. But did you have a point where, or maybe it's before you put that calendar up, was there a point that you were like, I need to follow this?
I just remember standing at my stand-up desk in this job, looking at these two screens and thinking to myself, I feel like I'm wearing a costume when I'm here. I feel like I am somebody completely else when I walk through these doors, when I go in for all these fancy lunches and snooze these clients. And I just felt like a fake. I felt like a person that was living this completely different life. And then I would leave there and I would go home and I would talk to these women around the world who were seeing incredible results with their health and wellness that I was helping. And it lit me up and it filled my cup. And I would dance around the house and I would talk about, in my journal about how many people were seeing so many incredible results. And I'm so glad I'm being able to help people's life with their health and their wellness because it trickles out into their world with their families and who they're raising and et cetera, et cetera. So I was no longer, when people ask you, what do you do? Or they ask you things about your job or your parents even ask, how's work? I just started to completely detach from it in this way where I remember standing at the stand-up desk being like, I feel like I'm wearing a costume and I need to get out of here because I'm not living the life that I want to live. And so we could say that that's a turning point where I realized something needs to change. And at the time I was going to I was just surrounding myself with every entrepreneur networking event that I could. So I would go to these talks at night and I'd hear from these other entrepreneurs that have stories to share. And I loved learning from those people. And I remember one guy said, essentially, if your passion that you're working on in your business is not putting the food on your table, you will never work as hard as your true potential is, or something along the lines of that. And for some people, they'll say that's complete, and utter lies. You can still have a successful business while you keep your 9-to-5. But for whatever reason, that resonated with me, that if I'm not all in on this and it's not actually what's putting the food on our table or the roof over our head, there's always going to be that little bit that I'm reserving, that I'm holding back. So I have to go and see what this is all about, just having this as my income. And so that was kind of my turning point. And then I sat down, I crunched some numbers. It was like, wow, I'm not making even a quarter of what I would get in a paycheck in my business currently. However, that didn't stop me. I was like, if this doesn't work, I will go and do something else. And so that was my turning point, realizing that how much effort and energy I'm putting into it, how much energy and effort this job is sucking from me, and then what would happen if this was what needed to provide for us. And then it was like, let's go.
Yeah, I love that, because you really followed your intuition, your guts, whatever people want to say, and you knew, right? Like you knew that what you were doing was not fulfilling you.
Exactly.
You do what you love, it just changes everything.
Yeah, and I don't feel 7 years later, I don't feel like I go to work. When I have meetings with my team and we talk about what needs to happen for 2023, I jump on that call, we all chat, we have a fantastic time, I leave the call, I go on with my day. It's just now a part of my life in this really beautiful, flowing, natural way, because I am doing what I feel like I was actually called to do. And because of all of my experience, because of my weight loss journey, because of my struggles with an eating disorder, because of all of these things, it's led me to now have this business where I'm helping people achieve their health and wellness goals. And that is important to listen to. And if we ignore all of that and we keep going to a job that doesn't feel like us and doesn't feel aligned, we're ignoring all of that stuff that is trying to come out, that's naturally there. And I don't know, I just don't think that's a very fulfilling life to live. But obviously I'm biased.
No, I agree though. And I feel the same way. And that's part of why I started the podcast, to help entrepreneurs and help small business owners and help people get through hard times and make these giant steps or small steps, whatever they start out being. But I felt the same, because I'm like, I have all of this knowledge and this ability to help people. I have to do it. You know, I wasn't like, I should do it. I had to do it. I had to do it. And I had to make that step. I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't know anything about, I learned fast, because I just knew I had to get it out there. And it's the same as you helping people with nutrition and fitness and feeling good about themselves. You have to do it. It's just a part of you.
Yes. And if you're listening to this and you don't have a story like you and I, if you don't have something that's like screaming at you, I need to do this, 2 pieces of advice. Listen to what people ask you for advice on. So start paying really close attention to what people are asking you to help with. And perhaps right then and there is a business idea of sorts. And then the second thing, if that's not happening, if nobody is asking you questions, which I very highly doubt it, because often people are asking you something because you're an expert in that space and you don't even know it yet. The other thing is surround yourself with some free online learnings about what you could do as a business. Start opening your eyes to what is possible. And so attending some things on YouTube, signing up for a Skillshare. It's a completely free platform and you can have a free month on there and you can learn all of these different skills, and perhaps there's something there that jumps out at you that you now like to do, and then all of a sudden you could start developing that into a business. So I would say if it's not screaming at you of like, I need to do this, you've got to insert yourself into a situation where you're open to it. You can see what is possible, and then perhaps it even takes a year, 2 years, 5 years for that thing to be like, this is it. If you start now, you will get there if you really are truly passionate about doing that.
I love that advice. And it's like, start with something that you enjoy doing or that you really like, that you are passionate about, right? And when you start with that and you, like you say, you learn some more skills, you figure things out along the way, all of a sudden you're like, I could be making money doing this. Why am I not making money doing this, right? That's a question that comes up a lot. People are like, I did it for 10 years before I realized, oh, I have a business. I just didn't know I had a business, right? It's like, take the things that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing, learn a little bit more about them, and make it a business.
Exactly. And then we can have a conversation / a therapy session around how you're a business owner with no hobbies anymore, because everything you do makes you as a business. That's a whole other set of, we can chat about that in 5 years' time.
My husband says to me all the time, no more businesses. I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything else. Because in my head now, I see everything as a business. I tell my friends, you need to charge people for that. You need to be doing that. They're like, I don't want to have a business. I realize now not everyone thinks the same as I do. But you see these opportunities now a lot of places because you're in that mindset.
Exactly, yeah. And when someone asks you, what do you do for fun? It's like you just rattle off all the businesses that you own.
Yeah, exactly. But it is fun, right? It is fun for you now because that's the space that you're in. I want
some of the deep work I have been doing, just again to be completely candid and honest and open, is finding things that light me up outside of my business. And so for the first few years, I didn't feel like I had the capacity for that. I didn't feel like I was even interested in doing things outside of that. Sure, I went on hikes and I did things. However, I wasn't making it as much of a priority as I make doing things for fun now. And that's because I know the importance of splitting, having some time to do business and also having some time to do completely fun, wild things that I like to do for no other reason. And so that's been a really interesting, beautiful journey for me to also go on. While we can kind of joke around business is fun, which it is, it was a hard lesson for me because I found all of a sudden I was like, what do I do for fun? Who am I outside of my business? And that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Oh, exactly. I did a post a little while ago that said you are not your business, right? And it's about that separation and having, you still need to have enjoyment. You still need to have time. And whether you schedule that in daily or it's going on a vacation and turning off your, saying, I'm not doing anything business on here, whatever it is, you need that time. You need to recharge your batteries and you need to have those moments of fulfillment that aren't business related, because that is still life, right? You still have to be living and it's not 24/7 about your business.
Exactly. And why do we do this if we don't have that freedom to live? We're not waiting till 65 to retire and start living. Business owners, you can live now because that's the life you're creating. So make it part of your schedule, even if it's 10 minutes a day to start.
Yeah, exactly. And I do always laugh. And another episode I did, we talked about someone just starting business, and he said, I was told if you're not working, 12 to 16 hours a day, then you're not going to make it and all this. And I told him, I said, that's crap. That is absolute crap. Because I said, if you aren't getting enough sleep or you're not getting exercise, you're not eating well, you're not taking time to be with your family, what kind of business person are you going to be? Right? Because you're going to be drained. It's not going to work.
Exactly. I had a mentor that I, at the time, was really keen on being a sponge to absolutely everything that she said. And one of her things was, you're not working enough. You're doing 12 hours, you need to do 16. And long story short, I did that and thought that was the way, learned my own lessons, but that's the exact opposite of what works for me and the life that I want to live.
Yeah, exactly. Because the happier you are, the healthier you are, the more fulfillment that you have in life, the better business person you're going to be. Right? Exactly. It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Exactly.
So true. So at the beginning of the episode, I know I said I feel like I know you because of social media, because I do follow you, and you have a really fun social media account, but it's also informative, which to me is kind of the place to be in 2023. But talk about your social media a little bit, why it's important to have, and how, you've got a really great following. How did you get there? Because people want to know that all the time, right? How do I have 200 followers. Like, what do I do? So tell us a little bit about your journey and yeah, start with that.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the followers, that's one metric that you can look at. You can also look at the posts, how many posts I have made. It's thousands. I believe that if we get out what we put in pretty much everything in life. And so if there's a shortcut, if you're trying to hack the system, often that's going to show. Cream will always rise to the top. And so one of my biggest things is consistency. I've consistently posted for the last 7 or so years and have built and grown my following over time by putting out really genuine, authentic content that helps people and entertaining. We're on there to be entertained, a lot of us. And so that's really what I strive to do on there. And I have fun with it, so I enjoy it. And so that's really the one piece of advice I can give is consistency is so crucial to social media and a long-term plan. looking at the followers compared to the post. We're not going to get necessarily thousands and thousands of followers if we're just doing one post a week, those sorts of things. And so just want to be completely blunt and honest there. We have consistently posted time and time again over the years, and that has really helped with that. The other piece is, like I mentioned, really helping people. So what problem are you solving? What pain point are you alleviating for people? And so for us, a lot of the time, they are not sure what workout to do, and they are sick and tired of eating diet foods like chicken breast, broccoli, brown rice. And so it's like, what can we show and what can we do to help make this just a little bit easier for you, so you can understand how you can live your normal life and get killer results and feel more amazing than you ever have felt in your life. And so I think that that's like the big things. What pain are you solving? And be consistent.
Yeah. And I love to, you're engaging, and that's because you are authentic, you're genuine, you're yourself, right? So when you're yourself, people are more attracted to that than if you just went up there and said, here's a workout thing you can do to make you have better arms. Like, that's not engaging, right? No one wants to look at that.
Exactly. And that's what I was doing in the beginning. I was sort of like, here's your 7-day arm workout. And what I realized is there's no depth to that. People can get that anywhere. So what makes you authentic and what makes you different than the rest? Because in a crowded space, especially the fitness space, what can you do that is going to make you stand out?
Yeah, exactly. And people want that. They want to see something interesting. You don't stop at a boring video or a picture that doesn't look interesting. You scroll right by it, right?
100%. And if you're struggling with that, if you don't know what's interesting about you, or if you don't know what to post, or you're scared of the camera, again, start small. Think about 3 seconds or less. These days, it takes about that to grab someone's attention, and that's all we have anyway. So don't think you need to create this big, elaborate thing. Draw some inspiration from some other people, 3 seconds, post it, and then keep posting it. You will learn over time. You will get more comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I know for a lot of people, they feel like it's kind of a daunting task. And they're like, I have to post at 11 a.m. I have to put a story up at 7 p.m. because that's what the algorithm says. Is there ways you can make that easier? Do you use a scheduling app? What do you do? What's worked for you?
Yeah, to be completely candid again, getting some help has been really helpful. And so having someone step in and help create a plan, help create what in our head feels like a really good idea, and kind of bring that to light. So that comes in the form of content pillars, that comes in the form of what we actually are doing for the next 3 months and how we need to break that down into tangible little snippets of content instead of just, woo, that's what we're posting today. That I find is wildly ineffective. And so getting some help if it doesn't come naturally to you. But yeah, absolutely. We've used Later as a free tool to start. Then you can change to a paid plan if you want or need. So it's Later. And they're a great resource for even just learning. So even if you don't use their scheduling tool or you don't sign up and have an account, their blog and their resources for social media, I always send people there. It's like a one-stop shop. They do fantastic content that's easy to understand. They break it down. And so those would be the two things: is getting some help if you want and feel like you need it and can, swing it. If that doesn't feel doable, tap into free resources like Later and then learn all you can, and then have a goal of perhaps you hire someone in 6 months or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And I love that advice literally for everything. It's not just for social media, right? Like, if you don't know how to do payroll, hire somebody to do payroll. If you don't know how to keep your books or do bookkeeping or financial records, hire an accountant or a bookkeeper, right? It kind of goes for all aspects of business. I have a commerce degree, like a business degree, and finance and accounting just gives me like nightmares. So I just pay somebody else to do it because it's way easier.
Totally. And those things, again, they can be like scary or they can feel really out of reach. I know when it was just myself, I thought, I want to grow this team and I want to have all of this support and all of this help. And it would be a great idea, but how am I actually going to pay for that? And so again, starting small. Our first hire was an admin assistant who was doing something like 10 hours a week. And that's what we could swing at that time. And that's what I felt like I needed some help with, to be able to take some of this load off my plate so I could focus on what felt like my zone of genius, where I'm really good. And so that's where we started. And so go from an assistant to, now we've got a small but mighty team of 5. That didn't happen overnight. And each and every step was pretty scary. We're now the livelihood for other people's lives. However, it didn't go from me to team of 5 all working as a well-oiled machine. It was starting with that admin assistant. That's what I had identified would be really helpful at the time. And then we grew from there. And so if it seems overwhelming to get that help with the accountant, get that help with this, get the social media person, just start with one, the most important, and then have your plan from there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, your time is valuable. Your time is money, right? So if you could have spent that time, instead of doing the posting, whatever it is, the counting, if you can spend that time speaking to a potential new client, that's going to make you money, right? So spend your time where you're good at something.
100%. Yeah, that zone of genius is always what we talk about in my team. And they've actually blocked me from certain softwares and tools because I know how to do it. I don't know how to do it well, but I know how to do it. And so if I have this great idea, I go in there and then they know, and all of a sudden I'm getting messages via our communication channel, get out of that platform, get out of that program, what are you doing in there again? Or I'll send something and say, what do we think of this? They're like, no, it's a no. And so of genius, like I just wasted so much time doing something that it's not my role. And so that can be an important thing, a hard pill to swallow, because I'm like, I'm the business owner, I can do this, but I can't do it well. And that's why I pay these other people to help.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. So true. Lucy, do you have kind of a most important lesson you can share? Or do you have something that you're like, this is what every entrepreneur business person needs to do?
Ooh, that's the golden question, isn't it? I would say that the most important thing is to surround yourself with some sort of community. It doesn't need to be a paid community. It doesn't need to be a business coach, but some sort of community. When I first started, I was a member of a co-working space, and sorry, my dog likes to be the star of the show.
It's okay. She wants to be on this podcast too, and that is totally fine.
Yeah, it's her nap time. So I was of a co-working space, and it's one of the best things that I did because I was surrounded by this community of other business owners. And so my key takeaway, my number one thing is that if you can surround yourself with some sort of community, even when the going gets really tough, and even when you have your dark days, your low days, your hard days, you've got these people to lean on and talk it through with. And I think that there's so many tools and tips and tricks I can share, but that's my number one. Surround yourself with like-minded people where possible.
I love that advice, and I could not agree more. And I think that group of people, that network community, whatever it is, gets you through the hard times and helps you propel into the good. So I love that advice. Anything you wish you had known?
I wish I had known that it would be much more of an inward personal growth journey than, I wouldn't do anything differently. What I guess I didn't know is that I had some stuff to work through. I personally had some barriers, some blocks, and some things that I didn't expect to come out in the way that they came out. And so while I knew entrepreneurship would be hard, and while I knew owning a business wouldn't be all rainbows and butterflies or unicorns or whatever we're talking about, I didn't necessarily know how confronting it would be on things like my mindset around money, or the way that I view time, or the blocks that I have to accept feedback of sorts. And so these big lessons and things that I learnt about myself, wow, I was not expecting some of that. And some of it has come in hot and heavy and very confronting. Some of it has been slow and gradual learning.
Yeah, the lessons you learn, you don't even know what is ever going to come of it. And I feel that is such a great point to make, because that personal growth and personal development that you learn on your journey through owning a business and being an entrepreneur is like nothing else.
Exactly. It's that personal growth. You nailed it. That's what it is. It's like we do this as business owners, and we know it's sort of we're the owner now, and we get to, call the shots. But that personal growth is something that I was just not expecting.
Yeah. But look at where you are now. Right? It all turned out so well.
I'm sure there's some big, hard challenges again that I'll face. Right now is a beautiful time. I'm enjoying that high. I'm enjoying that beautiful moment because that's what it makes. That's what makes it all up. The highs, the lows, we ride them all out. We surround ourselves with community to help get us through. However, enjoy the highs because they are sweet. And I know that in the future, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's next month, maybe it's a year, there will be some hard things that we're faced with. And so that's part of it. Getting really comfortable with that, I think, is a great thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're comfortable with it, honestly, it makes it a lot easier.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lucy, thank you so much. I know that people are going to want to know more about you. So where can they find you? You've got great social media, and I know you have a website too. So do you just want to tell people here where they can go to look up more and learn more about you?
Yeah, totally. And so like you sort of mentioned, social media, I'm a pretty open book on there. And so my amazing deaf dog that has been trying to make an appearance all podcasts on there a lot. My wife and I, we share a lot of behind the scenes things of what it's like to live off this, entrepreneur, one income dream life that people talk about. And so it's just a fun place to be. There's also, of course, health and wellness things that go on there. So if that's something you're interested in checking out, on Instagram is where I'm most active. So it's at Dunnebells, Dunnebells. And I'm always open for conversation there. So if you listen to this and you just want to say, hey, that was a great episode, or if you're like, you know what, I disagree with you here, like slide into my direct messages. I'm always open for about whatever it is. And so that's the best place to find me. And then our website as well, dunnebells.com, has all of the information about what we do. And if you want to get in touch, that's a great way to do it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy. I appreciate it. I loved having you on, and I can agree that her Instagram is fantastic. So make sure you go and follow her, check out the website, and thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.